Hello, Cassidy here. It's been a while since I have done a video where I am by myself. I've been releasing a lot of conversations, but I felt like it was time I probably get back into this and sort of unpacking my own ideas because there's a lot I have been thinking about, but honestly, a lot I've been sort of stunned to talk about. So this is sort of jumping back in with tentative waters. And today, to get the ball rolling, I kind of want to talk about exploration. I love exploration. It's led me to a lot of amazing things in my life. It's one of the things that drove me into filmmaking and media. It's one of the things that drove me to travel and live in different places. And it's honestly one of the things that encouraged me to start this little thing on YouTube. I don't know, there's just something very empowering about exploring ideas and doing that in the frame of people's stories. And I found it really helpful as I tried to wade through my own story and my own beliefs. And there was a long time I did that, sort of this lone wolf mentality, trying to push through on my own and figure it out. But what I realized is that it became a lot easier and a lot more beneficial when I found ways to bring other people along with me or join other people on their journey to continue on that path of understanding, hey, what is this life about? What is it to be human? And I've done that for a long time in my private life, but I started putting videos online to expand the ability to do that. And it's led me to meet a lot of interesting people that I would never meet before and practice exploring these ideas in different ways than I could have before. And I think as I was always doing this, maybe not always, maybe always is a little bit of an exaggeration, but what at the end of the day, I hoped the spirit of which that I engaged these things were in the spirit of exploration, where I was much more interested in finding and creating spaces where ideas could be wrestled with and people could be met for where they are. And it wasn't just these platforms to promote or defend ideas, but to think through those and give a little bit more leniency and grace in the way that we uncovered those things. And that's what I always aim to do for this channel and what I've loved doing. It's shown me so much beauty in the world, but it's been a bit difficult to keep moving forward. I just feel a little bit stunned in it. And it's not because I don't think that it's helpful or I believe in it or it's something I should continue. It's honestly just been my own little experiences and changes that I've had in the last 6 months to a year. I mean, the first half of those being very personal. For one, I am married. If you watch my conversations, I had a conversation with my husband in the last episode. And it's kind of fun to be able to share that with you before I talk about this, because it's interesting. When I started this thing, he wasn't in my life. And so I was always somewhat intentional of what I said and what I did with this, because I think that's a virtue and there's certainly wisdom in that. But I always had this feeling of like, whatever I do, however I attend to these conversations or conduct myself online, I was the only one going down with the ship. I wasn't pulling anybody down in the weeds with me. But now I share a ship. And there's just a whole different process and weight of responsibility when you start calculating other people into your actions and the way in which you operate, and any consequences that come from me going out on a public platform and talking about these things are shared by this other person, and that means something to me. The second part is my faith. When I began this thing, I was still very much in a transition exploration space. I had stopped calling myself Protestant and was seriously exploring Orthodoxy. The time I probably would have said I was pretty certain I was going to be Orthodox, but I knew there was a lot of poking and prodding that I needed to do to understand what that meant and make sure I knew what I was getting myself into and if it was something that I really believed. And that poking and prodding did lead me to become Orthodox. And I don't think it stops me from being able to continue to explore ideas, but it definitely orients me in a different space. I mean, at this point, it's been a 7-year journey to get where I am. And there have been a lot of ups and downs in that journey. For one, there was a time I wasn't certain if I would continue being a theist. And then once I got to the place where I felt more comfortable with theism and Christianity, there wasn't ever a confidence that I would find a home in any denomination. So when Orthodoxy came and filled that void for me, it was somewhat of a surprise. And I have so much joy and life in that faith. And I want to keep exploring that and sharing that. But I also don't want that to end up pigeonholing me and making it hard for me to have generous dialogues about things where people come to different answers about that questions or went down contradictory paths. And on the other hand, since I am new to the faith, there's so much fear and feeling like I'm trying to present myself as an expert, which I've never tried to do, but whenever you put yourself in front of a camera and you put it out to the world, there's always this sort of consequence that people assume that of you. And that's definitely not something I want to be in. I've been exploring Orthodoxy for 3 years, and I found joy in it, but that's so insufficient to really understand the full scope of what the religion holds. And there's so much I'm still learning and reframing about it. And I mean, even with my background in Protestantism, which there's a lot of overlap in Orthodoxy and Protestantism, I still feel really uncomfortable speaking with confidence about things. And I want to find a way to open up that exploration space to continue looking at that. But yeah, there's that fear that it comes off in a way that positions me to be more knowledgeable than I am, or sharing something or standing strongly for something that's not actually true. And that's always a fear when you go out on stage. I think if you're genuinely looking to have honest dialogues, there's always the fear that you're misrepresenting something. I don't want to do that, particularly with this thing that I found incredibly helpful for me. I think the last thing that has probably made this a little bit more difficult for me to continue with is dealing with the realities of what having these types of conversations online could bring. This has been slowly made apparent to me over the years, but particularly in the last 6 months, and more specifically with my participation with the Bridges of Meaning Festival. I've talked about it briefly before, and I've honestly tried to keep pretty quiet about it. In Orthodoxy, there's a lot of value in the idea of silence, and as a person who has a pesky habit of running her mouth, I try to practice this more and more and have really tried to practice this on this specific issue, and I'm going to continue in that pattern. But what I do want to say about it, that being so close to this thing and having to think through the ramifications of what were happening to individuals as we made decisions, as other parties made decisions, and the blowback that comes from all of those things. It's just a reminder of how much fear and animosity people have when it comes to these conversations, particularly in the face of the political. If you've been following me from the beginning, you probably know that a lot of my deconstruction, my move to faith to where it is now, was heavily influenced by politics. The 2016 Trump election was this spark that led to a lot of action on a lot of my religious questions, but also some of my political questions as well, trying to understand, what do I believe about these things, and what place do they have in my life, and what's good to believe, and the myriad of questions that come with that. And I think the experience I had with the Bridges of Meaning Festival was just the last in a string of experiences that really started to give me a glimpse into the personal impacts this stuff was having on people's lives. And it's stirred up a lot of questions in me. And those questions have been amplified as I'm seeing a lot of different conversations and conflict in various areas of my life where people are trying to really wrestle with how do we handle these questions? What responsibility do we have as participators in these things? You know, when it comes down to it, I actually don't much like talking about politics. I never really have. I find religion, philosophy, media, the ethics of those things far more interesting than whatever happens in the political sphere. But the truth is, the way that our modern world is structured, politics bleeds into all of those things in very distinct ways. And it's sort of hard to ignore it and not deal with it at all. Yet there's this whole spirit in which many of those conversations are held that I don't want anything to do with. There's discrediting, there's minimizing, there's name calling, there's all of these things that I don't think actually add to the conversation or get us closer to good answers to questions. And I've just seen firsthand how those things have unintended consequences that impact real people and communities. And it's really hard to sit and watch that in silence. It's really got me thinking and challenging the ways we engage in these conversations. And it's left me with a lot to say, but I am not really quite sure how to say it. And there's a little bit of fear in trying to do that. The minute I open my mouth and I start talking about these things is the minute I'm going to get a lot more scrutiny. And I could really start hindering the ability to have these exploratory conversations that I've built this channel on so far. And factor that in with all of the personal changes, it's this heightened level of responsibility. And I don't quite know how to address it. It just really has stopped to make me calculate what the heck am I doing here? And what is worth releasing publicly. So as I've been wrestling with this, I actually picked up Mere Christianity again. I love C.S. Lewis. And the more that I read his works and the more that I learn about his story, the more interesting I find him. But I've never actually finished this book. For one reason or another, it just never gotten to the end. I've read lots of pieces of it, but just never happened. So I tried my hand at it again. And there was something at the end of the preface that really stuck out to me and was really helpful as I was wrestling through this. So I want to read that for you now. I hope no reader will suppose that Mere Christianity is here put forward as an alternative to the creeds of the existing communions, as if a man could adopt it in preference to Congregationalism or Greek Orthodoxy or anything else. It's more like a hall, out of which doors open into several rooms. If I can bring anyone into the hall, I shall have done what I attempted. But it is in the rooms, not the hall, that there are fires and chairs and meals. The hall is a place to wait in, a place from which to try the various doors, not a place to live in. For that purpose, the worst of the rooms, whichever they may be, is, I think, preferable. It is true that some people may find they have to wait in the hall for a considerable time, while others feel certain almost at once which door they must knock at. I do not know why there is this difference, but I am sure God keeps no one waiting unless he sees it good for him to wait. When you do get into your room, you will find that the long wait has done you some kind of good, which you would not have had otherwise. But you must regard it as waiting, not as camping. You must keep on praying for life, and of course, even in the hall, you must begin trying to obey the rules which are common to the whole house. And above all, you must be asking which door is the true one, not which pleases you the best by its painting and paneling. In plain language, the question should never be, do I like the kind of service? But are these doctrines true? Is holiness here? Does my conscience move me towards this? Is my reluctance to knock at the door due to my pride, or my mere taste, or my personal dislike for this particular doorkeeper? When you have reached your own room, be kind to those who have chosen different doors, And to those who are still in the hall, if they are wrong, they need your prayers all the more. And if they are your enemies, then you are under order to pray for them. That is one of the rules common to the whole house. As a person who spent a lot of time in the metaphorical hallway, I have a lot of sympathy for people who are trying to figure out what they believe, whether it's religiously or politically or what have you. But I guess as a person who's settled into a room, I hope to keep that last part of that quote in mind. And with grace, continue to explore with people who are within my room, chosen different doors, or still trying to find the hallway. And hold all of that in the reminder that I myself might have chosen the wrong door. While I recognize that the things I mentioned earlier in this video make me hesitant to keep moving, they're also the things that keep encouraging me to take the steps. Yeah, there's this responsibility that I feel, and that can be very daunting. But I also recognize that these are the things that have shown me beauty in the world, helped me understand what it is to be more human. And I don't know, there's a confidence and a support in that continues moving me towards something even when it's scary. And I hope that those things also keep me in check so that I don't become a person I don't want to be or creating things that I don't think are helpful. So I hope it can also keep me in check as I wade through some of these waters. That's really all I have to say today. But I have new content on the way. I'm really trying to figure out what makes the most sense of releasing content. And life's just been sort of unpredictable, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work. But for now, I'm going to try to do 2 conversations a month and 2 sort of monologue videos like this a month, 1 every other week. And I would like to try and get some live conversations in there. It would be nice to be weekly, but that's been sort of difficult. But I'm going to at least aim for once a month. And I'm not quite sure about times yet, but I'm going to try Mondays. I was doing them on Fridays, and Fridays are just too unpredictable in my life. So Monday nights here in the Netherlands time, and I don't know, whatever it is everywhere else. So if you want to join in or engage in friendly conversation, you want to talk about any things I talk about, or you have something specific, I would love to have people join those. I find them really helpful, and I hope other people find them helpful too, but I'm going to try to make that more clear. So I will go live next Monday, probably around 7 my time. So be on the lookout, and hopefully I see you there.